let's go ahead to our core folder and let's create a new folder. And this would be for our player info. Inside of here, we're going to create a structure. And this would be s underscore player info. And this is going to hold the basic information of our specific player. For example, we're going to have a name for the player. So this would be a name. Let's add in a new variable, and this would be the level of the player, which would be an integer. We're going to have an image for the player. So that would be our portrait. We're going to make this of type texture 2D object reference. And this will be it for now. So let's go ahead and save this and then let's close it. Go to our content drawer again. Let's create a data table. Search for data table and you should get one. And we're going to select this sPlayerInfo as our structure. Press OK. And this would be dt underscore player info. Let's open this up, add in a new row. And we're going to name this new row the name of our character. Our character name is going to be arbitrarily Chris, right? So I'm going to name this player Chris Summers, and the player is going to be a level 0 when they start. And for the portrait, I'm going to quickly go to the third person character. Go to the third person character here, open up where the survival character is, and I'm going to take a quick screenshot. Again, you can choose to do it however you like. For me, this is like the easiest way. A quick mugshot type, per se. And there you go. I'm just going to save this directly. I'm using GreenShot to take the screenshot. And back in my player info, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder and name this PNG. Open this up, and I'm going to drag and drop the character screenshot that I just took right in here. Just like that. Looks good. And I'm going to select that as our portrait. There you go. Save this. And the reason why I'm building a structure and also this database is because in the future, you may want to have additional characters that the player wants to start as. So that's why I'm doing it in this data table, just so that it enables expansion right off the get-go. Let's go back to our content player info folder. And here we're going to go ahead and create a new folder, and this will be named as UI. Let's open this up, and we're going to create a new widget, widget blueprint. And this would be named as W underscore player card. In my Patreon, I have added 2 free images of the Survivor ID cards. One with the actual image of a character, and then also one which is stripped down of everything that will allow you to customize by adding in new names and all of that new information. We're going to use this ID card for the purpose of this tutorial. Feel free to visit my Patreon to download this Survivor ID card templates for your game. Now let's go back. I'm going to go back into my player info. And then in the PNG folder, I'm also going to import the card. So in our UI, let's go ahead and open this up. And here I'm going to add in a size box. I'm going to select the size box, set up this width override and the height override. Let's set the width to about 170 and the height to be about 200. And let's set this to desired on screen. And now in my content drawer, I'm going to go to that PNG folder and then drag and drop this ID card in here. So I get something like this. And immediately I want to see how this looks in game. So I'm going to go to my core folder, UI, player HUD. And I'm going to search for the player card and then drop it into this canvas panel, drag this in here. We're going to anchor it to the bottom right here. And let's size this just like how we did, 170 by 200. Let's move this around somewhere like this. And let's see how this looks in game. That doesn't look that bad, but we do need this to be a little bit bigger so the player can actually see what's on it. So if I were to stretch this out just like this. So we're going to make it 350 by 410. There we go. That looks pretty good. So back in our player card, I'm going to select the size box, and then I'm going to make this 350 by 410. All right, so now let's start adding some fields into this. First, I'm going to select the size box and then wrap it with a overlay. And in here, I'm going to add in a text box on the overlay. And the text box, let's do some padding. So the left padding, I'll set it to like 70. And the top padding would be like 30. Let's actually add our character name in here just to see how the size works. Let's make this like 73 and also this one to be like 28. And let's size this down to like 18. And that looks good. And also I'm going to install a new font. So in my core folder, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder for fonts. In here, I'm going to drag and drop a new font. I already have a tutorial in my channel showing you how to install new fonts, and I will leave a link in the video description for you to go and take a look at to see how you can install new fonts as well. I'm actually going to use this font for the headers in our card ID. So here I'm going to go ahead and select that. And the color and opacity, I do want to turn it down a little bit. So let's go ahead and darken this just a bit. And the opacity, I'll just put it at like 0.8 just to make it fade into the entire setting here. And then the ID is going to be as it is, but right here, I want to add the player's level. So I'm going to add in a new text onto the overlay. And this one, again, I'm going to actually name this as player LVL for player level, make it a variable. And also we're going to do a left padding. We'll do about 240. And the top padding we'll do about 70. And I'm going to set this up with the new font and set this to also 999. The player is most likely going to go to level maybe 50 at best in this game, but I'm just going to set it for 999 just so the spacing is done correctly. And also I'm going to set the font to 18. Let's make this a nice black color. And that's basically it for the level. And now for the image, I'm going to go ahead and add in an image onto our overlay here. And select the image. We're going to name this portrait underscore img. Make sure it's a variable. And I did some testing. The best one that works is if you set your left padding at 70 and if you set your top at 45. And then let's go ahead and drag and drop the image. Now, I had to retake the image of the character because this one is a lot more zoomed in and it wasn't fitting the entire portrait. So I just moved the camera backwards a little and then I took a different shot. And that seemed to actually work. So if I drag in this image in here, and this image size, I want to set it to like 130 by 210 and set this on the center. That actually looks pretty good. And also I'm going to select the image and then go to the tint and then darken the image a little so it kind of fades in. So it's not overly bright. Just a little bit of brightness on the face should be fine. And okay. Let's see how this looks in game. And that's how the player card is going to look like. That actually looks pretty good. All right, and the one last thing that we're going to do is the actual name of the player. We're going to go ahead and set this to player name underscore txt, and then make sure it's a variable, compile. Go to the graph, and let's go ahead and create a new variable, and this will be player info. And this will be of type S player info. Make sure this is instance editable and also expose on spawn. And on event pre-construct, we're going to drag in our portrait image and we're going to say set texture from brush or set brush from texture and then connect it here. We're going to drag in our player level. We're going to drag off of this and we're going to say set text and then select this set text option here at the bottom. Connect this here just like so. And the last thing is the player name. And we're going to set text and connect this in here. The next thing that we're going to do is drag in this player info to a get, drag off of this, and we're going to break the player info. So we get the name, level, and also the portrait. The portrait image, we can actually set this to the texture just like so, and the level into this in text, and then also the name into this text just like so. So that is good. Now we need to go ahead and build this information. So let's go ahead and close our player card. We no longer need this. And if you were to press play right now, this should all be empty because we haven't defined all of this information. So this tells us that it's working good. In our content drawer, Let's go back to our core folder and open the UI folder. And in here we have our player HUD. This is where we're actually building in our player card. I'm going to select this player card, right click, and I'm going to wrap it with a wrap box. Now this should actually create a wrap box and then also put the player card inside of it just so that we see how it looks like. Now select the wrap box and let's go ahead and name this as player ID card underscore container and make this a variable. Compile and save it. Now we no longer need this player card inside of it, so we can go ahead and delete it, and the player ID card container will maintain the size. Now in our graph, we're going to go ahead and create a new custom event. This would be setup underscore player ID, and this is going to have an input, and this would be of type player info, and then this would be of the type player underscore info structure that we created previously. And now when this function is called, we want to go ahead and get our player container. We're going to clear all children or clear children. So this way, if there's any other ID cards inside of that container, we can get rid of it just to be, safe. And then we're going to go ahead and create a widget. And this widget would be our player card widget. And this player info, we can just plug this in here directly. And this return value, we want to add it to our container. So drag in our player ID card container, and we're going to go ahead and say add child to wrap box, connect the execution pin, connect the return value as the content. And now we need to call this setup player ID function. So in our content drawer, go to our third person folder, go to blueprints, open up our third person character, and we're going to create a new function for this. And this would be setup underscore player card or ID card. I'm going to go ahead for now. We're just going to get a data table row because we don't really have a main menu yet. In main menu, the player will be able to select a character and we will get that information to build this ID card. But for now, we're going to just manually select it by selecting the data table row and also choosing player info as a data table, which will give us all the rows in there. We have one row for now, and that should do the trick. And now off of our player HUD reference, because this is where we have our setup player ID function. So here I'm going to go ahead and call in that setup player ID. There you go. Off of row found. And also this out row, we're going to connect this into the player info. Compile and save this. And this setup player card, we want to set it up as soon as the event begins. Now let's go ahead, compile, save it. And now if I press play, I should have the information of the character and also the level of the character and such. And you can feel free to add in additional information like, some filler information just to make the ID card look more realistic. But for now, it's showing the name on the top and also the level of the player. So I'm kind of happy. So that's all I require from here for now.